A couple more examples, a lot less involved than that behemoth of number 1.
Right. So that first example, that's like a huge chunk of a problem. But we're also in this section going to do some simpler things, like solving equations algebraically and graphically.
Simpler
in some respects.
In some respects, like that, I don't look at that and go, "That's a simple solve."
Right. So we are past the point of two-step equations. Like you should be able to solve a two-step equation without having to really review that.
We're putting on our big boy and big girl pants today.
Yes. So if you're solving algebraically, you just need to think of that as not graphically. That's basically what that means. Like you can either do it algebraically, which is by hand, or you can do it graphically, which means put it in your calculator.
Right.
Let the calculator
show all the steps on algebraic.
Yeah.
Like you can't write down x equals 5 and then we go, "Hey, good job," because there was no algebra at all shown.
Even if you can somehow guess and realize that, like, that's not the point. The point is to actually be able to follow the steps and the rules.
So you got to have those rules. They're pretty important.
Yeah. So we're going to end up having to factor, use the quadratic formula, stuff like that.
Okay, let's do it. Well, first let's get all the x's on one side.
Yeah, in this example, let's get all the x's on one side. And since the highest power is this x cubed, I think everything should move to the
I agree.
left.
Let's leave the x cubed positive. Just makes life simple.
Now, when I move this over, remember that you are subtracting 11x squared from both sides in order to move it. And you are subtracting 10x from both sides in order to get those to move to the other side.
Right.
And that's how we get a 0 on the right. Once we have a 0 on the right, then we can try to factor.
Yeah, and also, even though we're not doing it at this point, once you have that 0 on the right, you can graph it as well.
Right.
So that's also important.
Because you could always check it.
That is correct.
When I look at this and I try to factor, I'd say, looks to me like they all have an x, so I can take an x out.
I would concur with that assessment of the situation.
Which makes these all have 1x less than it did before.
Oh, looky there. A quadratic. Now, we have lots of tips and tricks and tools to use to solve a quadratic. One of those being the quadratic formula every single time.
Yes. You can always use the quadratic formula, but sometimes factoring is easier.
Right.
Or depending on your Algebra 2 teacher, you might try slide and divide or using some kind of boxes.
Right. So it just depends on what your personal factoring mode of...
Well, what do you think we should do here?
Whatever you want. You're driving, so
okay.
you pick the way, and we'll go with that.
I like slide and divide. So slide and divide, you take this number in front and multiply it to the last number, and then from this point on, we're kind of going off of the equation path. We're kind of doing some side notes here. So we're not going to put equals 0 because
no algebra rules violated, by the way.
As long as we don't put equal signs at this point.
Right.
Nothing we're doing this is like side note work. Okay. Now we're going to factor this. So what multiplies together to get negative 60?
Well, you got 5. You got 6 and 10. You got 5 and 12. You've got 20 and 3 and 30 and 2.
Yeah, I don't think this is factorable.
You got...
Because I was thinking a positive 60. If it was positive 60, we'd be good because then we could use... No, I don't know what I was thinking. Summer has been too long.
All right.
Do you see a way?
Not off the top of my head, so I guess that means quadratic formula.
Let's quadratic formula it. So let's get rid of this.
And if quadratic formula pops us out an even number, then we'll know that we had a
that
little
we
mistake in there somewhere. So A in this case is going to be 6. B will be negative 11, and C will be negative 10.
And I think we all know the quadratic formula song, don't we?
Yeah, we're not going to sing it.
Okay.
You can sing it.
X
I'm not feeling real singy.
Negative B plus or minus square root.
B squared. That's a negative 11 squared, by the way.
Make sure you put it in parentheses.
In parentheses. Like if you punch it into your calculator, negative 11 squared, you get negative 121. That's not correct. But if you punch it into your calculator, parenthesis, negative 11, parenthesis squared, you get positive 121, which is totally different.
Right. You want to start pushing some buttons on your calculator?
I'll button push. So while you're writing that down and explaining the process.
The other thing that you'll see us say a lot in this class is to give us an exact answer. An exact answer is not a decimal. An exact answer would be something like 11 plus or minus the square root of...
361.
over 12. Now, does 361, does that,
I don't know
you
that that's
can't
square
divide
roots.
it by 3.
19.
Ooh, look at that. What are the odds?
I don't know. 11 plus or minus 19 divided by 12.
So that gives us 30 over 12. And 11 minus 19 is negative 8 over 12. Which those
Now, for us, believe it or not, those are good answers.
technically, yeah.
We don't, we're not going to make you reduce. However, most of you have been have had pounded into your brains. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it is 30 over 12. So do not write a mixed number ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Improper fractions.
But an improper fraction is beautiful.
So 30 over 12, both are divided by 6 to get 5/12. 8 over 12 is
4/3. 2/3.
2/3. Negative 2/3. And that, I think, is the problem. So we may have been able to slide and divide there. We probably could have.
Probably.
But
you could have boxed, slide and divide,
or use the
or
box
whatever,
on that.
or you could have guessed and checked your way through.
Yes.
So we could have factored that one, as it turns out, but that's okay.
Now, what about this x in front?
Well, he still is there,
So,
but he is set equal to 0.
Yeah. The thing is that at this point, really, what we did is we took 6x squared minus 11x minus 10, and we said that equal to 0 is solved using the quadratic formula. But we also have to do that with the x in front, so x equals 0 is also an answer.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about this a lot more, but the degree on this problem is a third power.
Which means you should have 3
You should
answers.
have 3 answers, and we do.
Conveniently enough.
Convenient.
Let's just jump right into example 3.
Okay, I already don't like example 3 because it has a square root, like, set apart from other stuff.
Right. So my suggestion is that we get the square root by itself.
Positively by itself?
Preferably.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty easy to do that. We can
Right.
just add this square root.
And, what are you adding to both sides? The square root of 49 minus 4x.
Yes.
Like the whole
that
thing.
That whole thing. None of it gets left
Yeah,
behind or forgotten.
Right.
So x minus 1 equals positive square root of 49 minus 4x.
Whew. Now, here's a real tricky situation. We're going to have to eliminate that square root.
Right. How do you get rid of a square root?
You square everything.
Okay.
Now, we're also now introducing the opportunity for a number to maybe not work.
Yes.
So,
because the degree of this is really 1.
Yeah.
We should get 1 answer. But now that we're squaring things, we could end up with 2, so we're going to have to check our answers.
We will have to check our answers.
The other thing that you may make a mistake on is x minus 1 squared means to do x minus 1 times
if you
x
write
minus
down
1.
X squared plus 1 or x squared minus 1
That's wrong.
for your answer, I might kill a kitty.
That's terrible to say. He wouldn't
You know,
really do that.
I would do that
No, you
because you know what's terrible? Students who take x minus 1 squared and do x squared plus
It's
1.
like the first day of school. It's
No,
really not that
maybe
big
a
deal.
puppy even.
Let's
Maybe
foil.
one of each.
Let's-
So don't do it.
Let's foil and let's move on. Foil first. X times x is x squared. Outer x
Minus
times negative 1.
2x
Right, and then this
plus 1. The quick way to do that is to square the first and last terms.
one.
And then
add the...
and then 2 times the first term times the second term.
Right.
And then boom shakalaka.
So now we want to get everything on the
Yep,
same
everything
side.
on the same side. And since we're dealing with x squared, we want to move it all over there to that side. So we're just going to hop those two right over.
It's a nice British accent.
Every now and then I get a nice accent. Doesn't happen too often, as you're aware. Starts off
X
one
squared
and goes somewhere
plus
else.
2x minus 48.
Oof. 6 and 8.
Hooray! So whatever multiplies to get negative 48 and adds to get 2 are the numbers we use. And
So plus 8 minus 6.
I feel like you got better at factoring over the
You
summer.
know, I maybe went to a math conference or
or
something.
2 or something. So we said each part equal to 0 to solve. That should be easy for you to do in your head. X plus 8 equals 0 means x equals negative 8, right?
Yep. And now look, we're going to get 2 answers here. So one of these probably is not going to work. What's the easiest way to do to check on that?
Plug them in, plug them in.
Plug them in, plug them in.
I would say that I don't know which one's not going to work. So, like, we actually literally, and this is where you can use your calculator to help you, like,
right.
negative 8 minus 1 minus 49 minus 4 times negative 8. We're looking to see if this really equals 0.
Yeah, if that doesn't really equal 0, it's no deal. So
this is plus 32. 49 plus 32.
49 plus 32
is 81.
81.
The square root of 81 is 9. 9, that's close.
It's close,
but no.
Negative 9 minus 9, that's negative 18.
Right. Let's see if the other one works.
Hopefully the other one will, or we could be in deep duty.
Well, otherwise we messed up somewhere.
And somebody over here is doing all the working right now. So
this is 5 minus, and this would be 49 minus 24, which is 25. Which is 5, which means that's the right one.
There we go. So we'll take that guy, not that guy.
So x equals 6.
Boom, shakalaka.